Hey guys, I hope you guys had a great weekend. This is Jeff. Mike actually had a family emergency, so he's out of the office unexpectedly today. I'm sure he'll be back either tomorrow or the following day. So if you need to reach him, he will be in the office this week. And of course, if you have any questions, Missy and I and Trish are here to help you, and your 5Q specialists and everybody's still here to help you. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Today we were going to talk about marketing within the community, how to be a big fish in a small pond. Is that right, Missy?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, but because Mike's not here, I'm actually going to change topics. And so I think what I want to do today is talk a little bit about some of the questions that I get asked when we're coaching people one-on-one. The two most common questions that I get probably in the last month, which are, you know, with the markets being so good, how do you get people to leave their investments or leave their advisor that they have because they're probably pretty happy or at least okay with the way things have been going? And then with cap rates so low, and how do you get them to buy into an annuity? So those are the two questions that I kind of want to answer today. How do you get people to leave when the markets are doing so well, leave what they're doing? And then how do you get them to move into an annuity when the markets are doing so well and annuity cap rates are so low? And so we'll just kind of go until we run out of time, but that's the plan. So hopefully you guys can see the Mimeo, and I'm going to unplug here and see if I can walk over to the board and write on it. And I'm guessing you can see it, so.
Yep, we sure can.
Okay. So let me ask this question. Who do we want as clients? And I think when we think about it, it's really an easy question to answer. It's really quite obvious. We want people with money, obviously. We're looking for people with money. We're looking for people with no or very little debt. We're looking for people with good incomes, because if they're spending every penny they make, do they really make a good client for us? No. But if you think about it, if they've got money and they've got very little or no debt and they've got good incomes, what kind of a lifestyle do they have? They've got a great lifestyle. And so, do these people have problems, or do they think that they have problems? Well, maybe not. At least they're not problems that they're aware of. Or at the very least, they're not problems they can't live with. Any problem that they can have, or that they might have, they can live with. And they can live with it quite comfortably. Now, how can I say that? How can I be so sure that any problem that they might have, they can live with it? And they can live with it with no problem. How can I be so sure? Well, I can be so sure because, again, these are people with money. These are people with no debt. These are people with good income. So even if they're paying too much in taxes, or it was proved to them or pointed out to them that maybe they could save money in tax, they've been paying that tax for years now. And has it affected how often they go out to eat? Has it affected where they go on vacation? Has it affected what kind of gifts they get for the grandkids at Christmas? No, it hasn't affected any of that. So in spite of the fact that they might have been paying too much money in tax, they still have good assets, they still have low debt, they still have good incomes, they still have that great lifestyle. What if you point out to them, well, you're paying maybe too much in fees? Has that affected them? No. They still have great assets, they still have low debt, they still have good incomes, which means they have that great lifestyle. So can they live with the tax bill? Yeah, they can live with it. Can they live with the fees? Yeah, they can live with it. Anything that you can point out to them, they've been living with it, right? Quite comfortably, actually, because they still have good assets, they still have no debt, and they still have good incomes. And so here's the problem, guys. If we try and tell people like that that they have bad investments that are causing them problems they can't live with, what's going to happen? Well, one of two things is going to happen. The first thing that might happen is they won't believe you. Why wouldn't they believe you? That's the most likely thing that would happen, is they won't believe you. They're not going to believe you because, again, if it was all that bad, would they be sitting pretty? And again, the people that we're really after are the people with money, no debt, and good income. So they've got great lifestyles. They're sitting pretty. And if you tell them, hey, you've got these horrible problems that are devastating to you, problems that they've been living with quite comfortably all these years, they're not going to believe you. That's the first and most likely thing that would happen. But let's just say you're really, really persuasive. You're really, really good at convincing people like that that they do have problems. Here's the thing. The other less likely thing is they might believe you. But let's talk about that. Even in the unlikely event that they believed you, and you told them that they have all these problems with their investments that are going to cause them all these problems that they can't live with, even if they believed you and they didn't like their investments, guess what they'll do? They'll change their investments. But they won't change their advisor. So why would they change investments and not change advisors? Well, let me ask you this. Do people like hassle? No, they don't like hassle. And is it a hassle to leave their current advisor? Is there paperwork? Is their money in limbo? Do they have to move to an unfamiliar company? Yes, so it's a big hassle. And if they don't like hassle, that's going to be a hurdle. These people don't like hassle. Do they like confrontation? No, they don't like confrontation. And even in the best case scenario, is it a confrontation to go back to the guy that you've been with for 10 years and say, you know what, we're not going to work with you anymore. Thanks for all you've done, but we're going a different direction. Guys, that's confrontational. It's a hassle. It's confrontation. And these people don't like hassle. They don't like confrontation. We don't like hassle. We don't like confrontation. And they don't like hassle, and they don't like confrontation, so they're going to do what's easiest. And the easiest thing to do, the thing with the least amount of hassle and the least amount of confrontation if you don't like your investments, is to leave them where they are, is to stay with the guy that you're with and change the investments. Because they really just want to do things the easiest way. And what's the easiest way? Confront him and yank all the accounts and do all the paperwork and have to worry about this new company and your money being in limbo and following up with it, or just staying with that guy and avoiding all the paperwork, avoiding all the confrontation, and just have him change the investments? That's the easiest thing to do. And quite frankly, they don't care who fixes it as long as it gets fixed. So chances are they won't believe you because they've been living with these problems and they still have these good assets, they still have no debt, they've still got good income. So more than likely they're going to think that you're making a mountain out of a molehill because you want to move the account. But even if they did believe you, quite often it doesn't work out because they'll change the investments, but they won't change what? They won't change the advisor. So we can't go in telling these people that have these assets and no debt and good incomes that, hey, you've got a ton of problems that you're unaware of that are causing you huge headaches that you probably can't live with now that you know. Doesn't work on them. So the other thing that I see advisors try is they say, well, you know, maybe we can show them that we have something better. So we're not going to try and convince them that they have problems because we're as aware as they are that, you know, they've got this great lifestyle and they've got this great situation. But these people probably could be convinced that, hey, your situation's good, but it's not perfect. And don't you think there are things that might be better that are out there? Wouldn't you want to at least see? And so we kind of go down that road. We try and show them that, hey, what we've got is something that's better. But guys, that's a really, really tough road to have to try and go down. Because here's the problem with that. They already have something good. Because remember, if they didn't have something good, would they be sitting there? No. So in their mind, they have something good. And quite frankly, guys, if you look at what the markets have done in the last year and a half, 2 years, with the Dow above 14,000, near record highs, historical highs, I mean, these people feel like they're doing okay. That even if they suffered a little bit in 2008, that they're bounced back and things are finally getting back to where they're good. So they've got something that they feel is working pretty well. And if they decide to go with you, they'll have to leave behind that good thing that they've got in hopes of hitting on something better. So if we're asking them to leave behind what you've got, that's good. To move to something better, what do you think they're worried about in that scenario? If they've got any worries whatsoever, what do you think it would be? It's that they might make a mistake. Because see, it's a catch-22. They won't know for sure or for a fact that what you have is better until they try it. Because you can't convince anybody that you can read the future. And they don't know the future. It might be better, but the only way they'll know that is if they try it and look back and say, yeah, it really was better. But the catch-22 is they won't try it until they know for a fact it's better. So they won't move until they know for a fact it's better, but they won't even try it until they can be proven to them that it's better. And if there's the slightest inkling of a fear that they might be making a mistake, what will they do? What's the easiest thing to do? Make all those changes, do all that paperwork, confront their other guy, or keep doing what they're doing, which is actually pretty good. They've got good assets, they don't have a lot of debt, they've got good incomes, they've got a great lifestyle, their account balances are back to where they were before everything happened. And if there's the slightest inkling that this might be a mistake to move, guess what? They're not going to move. Besides, you still run into the problem that even if they do believe you that what you have is better, they'll try it with their current guy. Again, why? Because they don't like hassle and they don't like confrontation. You get that? No matter what you do, if you try and convince these people that they've got problems that they can't live with, they don't believe that. They don't believe that because of the situation that they're in. They don't believe that because when they look at their account statements, they're doing just fine. They're riding the market up. And even if they did believe it, they're not about to change guys and have to deal with the hassle and the confrontation. They may change investments, but they're not going to change guys. And does that help you if they change their investments but stay with their current advisor? No. So the only other thing you could try is to say, well, what you've got is good, but we've got something better. But if they've got something good and they have to leave that good thing behind and take a flyer that what you have might be better, they're not going to do it. They're too afraid of making a mistake, and even if they did it, they'd do it with who? Their current guy. So let me erase this. And let's talk about when you market, who are the people that you're likely to run into? Well, the people that you're likely to run into that come in from your marketing and come and see you in your office, they really follow kind of a bell curve. So at the front end of the bell curve are the people who are going to say yes to you no matter what. Now, we just talked about the fact that with the markets doing really well the last year and a half, that, you know, why would anybody leave their current advisor? You'd think that there wouldn't be very many people that would say yes, and you're right. It's on the tail of the bell curve, the front end or the front tail of the bell curve. There aren't that many people that would say yes, but there are a few. So who are, I'd say it's about 10 to 15% of the people, let's just call it 10 for easy math. Who are these 10% of the people who are going to say yes to you pretty much no matter what? Well, these are the people who their advisor quit the business or he died, and so they don't have an advisor. And so they're out looking for an advisor and to replace that need, that vacuum that exists. Or they worked for years and years for a company and all they've got is their 401k and they really never really had an advisor, and now that they're left the company, you know, they need to do something with that 401k. That's a layup. Or they moved from Michigan to Florida. And so they had an advisor in Michigan, but they really don't feel comfortable working with somebody who's 2,000 miles away, that they can't just drive down to their office and talk to them. So now they're looking for an advisor in their new home, their new residence. These are all layups, guys. These are all people that you're going to get no matter what because of their situation. But are there a lot of them? And the answer is no, there aren't a lot of them. And really, how often, it's more, can you go out and find people who leave their company and just have this 401k to move? Yeah, you can. I mean, I've seen guys that have had some success with it, but that's probably the most success you'll have. Can you market to people who moved from Michigan to Florida and are now advisorless because their current advisor is 2,000 miles away and they're just not comfortable with that? Not really. Do you ever happen across them? Yeah, occasionally. But you can't make a living off that. Or do you ever run across people whose advisor left the business and they just handed off the account to a junior associate and they're not really comfortable with that, so before they settle for that, they're going to look around a little? Yeah, but you can't really make a living off of that. See, the best you can do is pay the bills with these people. These people, you might run across them if you're in the right place at the right time. You're going to run across these people. And the more you're out there, the more you're going to be in the right place at the right time. But you got to do a lot of marketing. You got to be constantly out there to be in the right place at the right time consistently. And even so, that's just not most people. It's probably enough people to pay your bills, to pay for your office, pay for your assistant, pay your mortgage, pay your electric, pay your utility, make your car payments. It's enough to keep you in the business, but it's probably not enough. It's certainly not enough to make $500,000 a year, $1 million a year. So that's those people. You have to be in the right place at the right time to get those kinds of layups. Well, what's the back end? What's the back tail of the bell curve? These are the 10% of people who are going to say no, no matter what. So who are those people? Well, they're probably just do-it-yourselfers who go to everything and are just trying to get information, or perhaps they don't have money. Could be people who just don't have assets. So you can't work with them. There's nothing you can do for them because they don't have enough assets. Or even if they do have enough assets, they're not going to work with you because they're just out for information and they have no intention of doing anything with anybody. So that leaves this 80% in the middle. So who are these 80% in the middle? Well, these are people that probably have advisors. So they're looking for advice. They don't do things themselves, or they probably start to fall more on the tail end of the bell curve. And they have money. They don't have a lot of debt. They probably have good incomes, which means they probably have good lifestyles. They've got money, they don't have debt, they've got good incomes, they're already working with an advisor. Could they do a little bit better? Sure. But to do a little bit better, they might have to leave behind what they're doing, and then they might run the risk of making a mistake. And the problem is you can't make more than a living off the layups. You can't get these people to work with you. So if you're going to have success in this business, you're going to have to get better and have a system for getting these people in the middle. And the great thing is that's what 5Q is. A system, a step-by-step process for getting these people. Because these people don't think that they have problems. These people look at their account balances, especially over the last year, and think, we're actually doing pretty well. We really don't have any reason to make any changes. They'll still respond to your marketing if you do the marketing that we tell you to do. If you do the 5Q marketing, you'll still get that 80% to come in and see you, but when they come in to see you, do you think they're leaning towards working with you or leaning away from working with you and just getting a few questions answered? I would tell you they're leaning away from working with you and just getting a few questions answered for all the reasons that we just talked about. They're doing pretty well. And whatever problems they have, they're certainly problems that they've been living with, and it hasn't hurt them so bad up to this point, so why should we think that we need to do anything drastic or make any huge changes now? But there is something that works for those people. And we tell you, or we call it, an advisorectomy. See, you'll get these people to move consistently if you do an advisorectomy. So what is an advisorectomy? Well, it's as simple as removing the other advisor from the picture. And it's important to do the advisorectomy or remove the other advisor from the picture for two reasons. The first is that, like we talked about, if people don't like their investments, they'll change their investments, but what will they not change? They won't change their advisor, again, because they don't like hassle, they don't like confrontation, they want to do the easiest thing, and the easiest thing is to change the investments with the guy that they have. But if people don't like their advisor, they'll change advisors. Even if they don't change investments. They may keep their investments the same, but they'll change advisors. Now, we'll talk about the fact that if they do end up making the decision to change advisors, in all likelihood, they will change or reposition some of their investments. But guys, the very worst thing that could happen, if you were good at doing an advisorectomy, is that these people will move all of their accounts, even if it was only in kind, to you. They'll move all their accounts, even if they don't change their investments, they'll still move all of those investments, despite the hassle and despite the confrontation, to you if they don't like their current advisor. Now, why would someone who likes their advisor at this point and has done pretty well, have seen their accounts bounce back, and be in this situation where they have good assets, very low debt, and good incomes, why would someone like that decide that they don't like their advisor anymore? Well, we think there are lots of reasons that they might decide they don't like their advisor, but there aren't lots of reasons. We think that, well, because they might have bad investment. But guys, again, if they decided they only had bad investments, what would they do? What would they change? Their investments. What would they not change? Their advisor. So we can't go down that track. Again, we could show them that there's something better out there, but they've got something that they think is good. Are they going to leave something good for something a little bit better and go through the hassle and the confrontation and the risk of making a mistake? No, they're not. Those two things aren't going to work. You can't convince those people that they're doing a poor job or they've got lots of problems. And those people, because they feel like they've got something good, are too afraid of making a mistake to do anything that they think might be a little bit better. There's only one thing that works, and it's disclosure. And so we've talked an awful lot about this in the past, and we've got lots and lots of materials about this and guided scripts and software on the website to create that disclosure proposal. But disclosure is the only thing that works. And I'll tell you, sometimes we can slip into bad habits when we see the markets fall from 14,000 to 7,500, because then people are panicking, people are looking to make changes, people are running for the lifeboats, and that can be a marketing and that can be a heyday for us. People are changing advisors. But when the markets start to bounce back, and they're not at 7,500, but they've been going from 7,500 to 14,000. And the people that we're after have good lifestyles because they have good incomes, they don't have debt, and they've got a lot of money. Sometimes we can get frozen and think, well, what can we do? You know, when everything around them is crumbling, do you have to do an advisorectomy? No. But when everything's going great, you can still get these people, but the only way you can get them is to do this, and you've got to be good at that. And we give you the tools to be good at that. Now here's why that works, and I want to give you an example of this because we did a training last week, and there were some people who didn't believe that, wow, that we could come up with 12 to 21 things that would make somebody want to leave their current advisor. See, if people think their advisor hid things they needed to know to make good decisions, how would they feel? If they thought the advisor that they were working with hid things that they needed to know to make good decisions, how would they feel about that? At the very least, they'd be disappointed. And they might get irritated. But if they thought that he did it on purpose, then how would they feel? Well, they'd be angry. And I'll tell you, if this 80%, even though they've got good assets and they've got very little debt and good incomes and a great lifestyle, if they're angry with their advisor because he intentionally hid things that they needed to know to make good decisions, things that made him more money and them less, they'll leave. They'll leave him. And they'll move their investments to somebody that they can trust. That somebody will be you. Because again, these people like doing the easiest thing. And the easiest thing is work with somebody who pointed out the problems, who is sitting right here and offering to help, or is the easiest thing to go back to the phone book, start picking out advisors from the phone book and interviewing them. The easiest thing is to work with you, so that's what they do. So the question becomes, well, what are those things that get them disappointed, irritated, and even angry with their advisor? And I want to spend a minute talking about what those things are, how you learn to do those things, and give you an example of one of those things. The software, the disclosure software on the website, will take your inputs from the fact find, and it'll come up with a list of up to 21 things that might be disclosure issues but I've seen, based on the inputs the software spit out, as few as 12. So it'll be somewhere between 12 and 21, with 16, 17, 18 things being more typical and the most common. And this list of 18 things, at first, it's going to look like a list of things done wrong. So let me clear this and put down what some of these 16, 17, 18 things are. Well, problems with their power of attorney. It'll be problems with their medical power of attorney because it's not electronically filed. It could be the fact that they don't have a survivor's guide. It could be problems with their property casualty insurance. These things, at least these first few things, and this list isn't exhaustive, but these things are non-financial. And we talk an awful lot about the fact that you want to start with the non-financial, because if all you do is talk about money, then they'll know that the only thing you care about and the only thing you're after is what? The money. So we want to make sure that we're talking about the non-financial first, but then we'll move into things that are, I don't know, for lack of a better word, pseudo-financial. There'll be things like titling, beneficiaries. There are things that, there's some other things. The list is, like I said, not exhaustive, but let's just call these pseudo-financial. These are things that have to do with their accounts, but don't necessarily affect their account balances. And then finally we'll move to things that are financial, like the fees, the risk versus the reward scatter plot, diversification, income planning. These are things that have to do with their accounts and do affect their account balances. So at first, again, this isn't a complete list. You can go to the software and you can look at the sample report that has a more complete list. But these are the kinds of things that will come up when you do the input from the fact find into the software. It'll tell you these are the probable non-disclosure issues. And again, it looks a little bit like it would be a list of things done wrong. And you might think, well, but Jeff, you just said that we just can't tell them things are wrong and that they have problems, because what will they do if people with money, no debt, and good incomes, if you tell them that they have problems that they can't live with, they're not going to believe you. You just said that they're not going to believe you. And even if they did believe you, they'd fix those things with their current advisor. Isn't that what you just said? That is what I just said. And that's why I'm not going to talk about these things as if this were a list of things that need to be improved or things in their situation that are done wrong. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to them about these things as things that their advisor hid from them, that they probably wish they had known so that they could have made better decisions. So let me give you an example of one of those things. This is something that probably comes up. The non-financial come up 100% of the time. These, it kind of depends on their investments, but there will always be a list of some of these, but that'll be a little bit different list. But the pseudo-financial, you'll probably see those nearly all of the time as well. So let me do titling for you, and let me show you how I take it from being something that maybe isn't quite right and needs to be fixed to an issue where we start to wonder, are we getting all the information we need from our guy to make good decisions? So when you go through the disclosure meeting, you're just going to hit the topics in order. The software is going to lay it out in the optimal order to cover these things. So something like titling would be somewhere in the middle, depending on the kind of list that it spit out. But if I was sitting across from a couple, one thing I might say when I got to that part of the meeting is there may be some problems with your titling, so let me kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about. Now I'm going to go through their accounts and I'm going to pull out a statement so that they can see and make tangible the fact that this is actually occurring with them. So I might say, so John and Mary, what I mean by that is this is your Morgan Stanley statement. So John, it's got your name on it. Mary, it's got your name on it. And it's joint with rights of survivorship. So you see right there where it says JTWROS. That stands for joint with rights of survivorship. So there are a lot of good reasons to have an account like this. So John, let's say something happened to you. Let's say you're in a car accident and you're gone. Who would have control over this account? And he'll say, well, Mary would. Right. Mary would. And Mary, do you have to jump through a lot of hoops and fill out a lot of paperwork for that to happen, or is it pretty much automatic because your name's on the account? Well, my understanding is it's pretty much automatic because my name's on the account. It is. It is automatic. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to fill out any paperwork. It just happens. It's automatic. And that's the great thing about an account like this. And it works the other way around. If something happened to you, Mary, John, you'd have control over the account. And if you're married, like me, you know, you probably figure what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine. So that's perfect. The accounts pass the way you want them. You don't have to jump through a lot of hoops. You don't have to do a lot of paperwork. I guess the only question I have for you is this. Let's say something happens to both of you. Let's say you're both killed in a car accident, or let's say, John, you pass away, and then 3 or 4 years later, Mary, you pass away. How would Morgan Stanley know what to do with this account because only your name and Mary's name is on it? How would they know who to send it to? And usually what they say is, well, we have it in our will that our kids would get the account. You're right. You do have a will, and it says that your kids get the account. And that's perfect. So the way you have it set up right now, either one of you, if something happened, would still have control over the account without having to do a lot of paperwork and jump through the hoops. That's perfect. But you're right, Morgan Stanley wouldn't know who to send it to because only your name and your wife's name is on the account. You don't necessarily want your kids' names on the account for all kinds of creditor and liability issues. Because if your kids were sued and your kids' names were on this account, what could they go after as well as your kids' accounts? Well, I guess they could go after this account as well, right? And so it just makes sense to leave their names off it for all those reasons. But you did put them in your will, right? And the great thing about this is every state has a process for sorting out accounts just like these, and it's called probate. Have you ever heard of it? And they say, yeah, we've heard of it. And so let me ask you this question. Your kids will eventually get the account as it passes through probate. But how long does probate take in the state of Minnesota? Boy, I don't know, maybe a year, 6 months. Yeah. Actually, in a situation like yours where it's pretty simple, it'd probably be a lot closer to 6 months than a year. I'd say 5, 6 months at most. But during that 5, 6 months, do your kids have access to the account? No, they don't. So it's going to cost them some time. And also because we're having to work it through the legal system, they're probably going to have to hire an attorney to help navigate that maze. And do attorneys work for free? No, attorneys don't work for free. So it'll cost them time, but it'll also cost them what? Well, it'll cost them money. But eventually, they'll get the money, right? They'll get the account. Yeah, eventually they'll get it. So it might take some time, and it might cost a little money, but if that's the way it is, if that's the process, then that's the process, and that's the way it is. It's just that in a perfect world, would you want it to take a lot of time and cost a lot of money, or would you rather they just got it? Well, I'd rather they just got it, right? In a perfect world, I mean, you don't want to put their names on the account because why? Well, because they might get sued, right? And so we go through this probate process that takes some time, costs some money, and that's just how it is. But again, in a perfect world, we'd rather what? Well, we'd rather they just got it. Yeah, right, that they didn't have to spend the time or spend the money. Here's the interesting thing. You know, if you went to your Morgan Stanley advisor and you said, geez, I wish there was a way for my kids to just get the account without taking a lot of time and without spending any money, you know what he'd say? Oh, that's not a problem. He'd just reach down in his left-hand drawer, pull out a piece of paper and say, here, just put their names on that piece of paper and sign it. Take you about 3 minutes. And guess what? Go straight to your kids without taking any time, without costing any money, without even having to put their names on the account. Wow. Usually what they say at this point is, really, what's that form? I mean, what's it called? What do we need to do to get that fixed? Well, we'll take care of that for you. I guess my question is, if he knows about the form, why do you suppose he doesn't? And he knows that in a perfect world, you'd rather they just got the money. Why do you suppose he doesn't have you fill that form out to begin with? And 99.9% of the time, guys, the answer to that question is, gee, I don't know. And that's where you have to be good at guiding the discussion. Because up to this point, we've just talked about the fact that it's a problem. And they said, oh, what's that form? What do we need to do to get that fixed? So do they want it fixed? Yeah, they want it fixed. But at this point, their intention is to get it fixed with who? With him. Because they don't have any reason not to work with him. So I ask them, why do you suppose he didn't have you fill out that form to begin with? And they say, you know what? I guess I don't know. I'm not sure. Well, let's think about this. During that 5 months or 6 months, whatever it is, that it's in probate, where does that account, who's holding on to that account? Well, I imagine Morgan Stanley is. Right. And why would Morgan Stanley be willing to do that? Well, I mean, they're still, you know, getting paid on it. Right, they are getting paid on it. And during that 5 or 6 months, do you suppose the advisor is talking to your kids at all? Do you think he's saying, you know what, don't worry, kids. In 6 months, when the court clears this, we'll have a check on my desk. You can come in, pick it up, and deposit it anywhere else you want? Or what do you think he's trying to convince the kids they should do? Well, he's probably trying to convince the kids they should leave it with him, right? And why would he want the kids to leave it with him? Well, because he gets paid on that account. Yep, he gets paid on the account. So why do you suppose he doesn't have you fill out that form to begin with? Well, I guess they want to hold on to the money. Right, because how does it benefit them to hold on to the money? Well, they get paid on it. Do you see that? Now, this isn't the most powerful one. I mean, we turn up the volume as we go from here to there. So we're somewhere in the middle. But do you see, they're starting to think, at first all they were thinking was, I need that form. Now what they're thinking is, I need that form. I wonder if my guy didn't give it to me without asking because he wanted to hold the account longer. And as I turn up the volume, as we start to do more and more and more of these things, the conclusion they start to draw is, gee, I'm starting to think he did withhold the information so that he could hold the account longer. I'm starting to think he did withhold the information on these things so that he could make more money. And if that's the conversation they're having in their head, they're starting to wonder, not do I have the right investments, they're starting to wonder, do I have the right advisor? And if they don't think they're working with the right guy, guess what they'll do? They'll change guys. You see why they would begin to question whether they're working with the right guy? And if people wonder, well, how could there be 12 or 15 or 16 things? Do you think that you run into people who have accounts that are jointly titled, whether they're at the bank or at the brokerage? How many people do you think that walk through your office have accounts that are jointly titled? Lots. Most. 99%. So, yes, these are things that you see every day that most people have problems with, that you're going to be able to talk about, not in the context of these are the things you need to fix because you've got problems, but these are the things that were hidden from you, that weren't disclosed. Because if all they think is a list of problems that they need to get fixed, then guess what they're going to do? They're going to look at this like a checklist and say, I need my guy to do that, 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 that. And once I get them all fixed with my guy, I'll be good again. But it's our job to get them to start questioning, am I working with the right guy? Do you see how that conversation we had at the end about the titling turns it from you need this form to fix that to why them leaving thinking, I think my guy didn't give me the form because he wanted to hold the account longer. Morgan Stanley makes more money if I don't fill out the form than if I do. And here's the best part. You know, we said there are 12 to 21 things that you might talk about, really 16, 17, 18 being the most common. If they thought after a couple of these things, after 2 or 3 of these things, they're going to start to think, boy, maybe my guy doesn't walk on water. That's disappointing. But after you do 2 or 3 more, so you've done 4 or 5, they think, wow, this is irritating. When I see my guy, this is a lot of things. I'm going to have to give him a piece of my mind. To when you do 2 or 3 more, so now you're up to 7 or 8, they're thinking, you know what, I'm really angry. This isn't a coincidence. 1 or 2 things I could see, but 8? No. They're hiding these things on purpose. So by the 7th or 8th one, guess what they want to do? Leave their advisor. Now we give you 16, 17, or 18. Why? Why do we give you 16, 17, or 18 when you really only need to connect on any 6 or 7 of them? Well, the reason we give you 16, 17, or 18 is some may resonate better with some people than others. And you may do some better than others. You may swing and miss on a couple. So here's the great thing. When you do it this way, when you base it on disclosure, first of all, you're going to get people, whether the markets are up, down, or sideways. Second of all, you're going to get the 80% of people who have money, no debt, good lifestyle, good incomes, because they're just focused on going to an advisor who tells them everything, not focused on, are my investments bad? Because we're not going to win on, are my investments bad? We're not going to win on, is there anything maybe a little bit better? But we'll win 80, 90% of the time on, is my guy telling me everything? 90% of the time they're going to say, no, he's not telling me everything, and I wonder if I'm working with the right guy. That's if you go 6 for 17 or 7 for 17. If you connect on 6 out of the 17 or 18 things, guess what? 90% of the time, they're going to move their account. Compare that to doing it any other way. Because any other way, which would be telling them they have problems and their investments are bad, or telling them you have something better that only you can give them, which we don't have anything that only we can give them. But guys, possession is 9/10 of the law. What does that mean, 9/10 of the law? It means that there's a 90% chance that the guy who has the account is going to be able to keep it, which leaves you how much of a chance of pulling it from him? 10% of a chance of moving that account. But here's the problem. Everybody on this call has moved accounts. They've gotten successful. Once they did it, they did convince somebody they had bad investments, and they didn't just change investments, they changed their advisor. Or they did convince something that they had something better, and they weren't afraid of making a mistake, and they moved to me. Well, guys, I'll tell you that once I put a quarter in a slot machine in Vegas and pulled the handle, and more money came out. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens. It happens about 10% of the time. And so what you're tempted to do is you're tempted to say, well, all I need to do is get really, 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 really good. I got to think about what I did and do it even better, and I'll have even more success with it. So we spend all of our time trying to create these near flawless presentations just so we can improve our closing ratio from 10% to 20%. Does that make any sense? To work like a dog at a presentation that you have to be flawless at just so you can get 20% of the people instead of 10% of the people to move, versus only having to go 6 for 18 and getting 90% of the people to move. Which do you think is easier? So sometimes people will look at our scripts and our process and say, gee, it's really hard. Really? Going 6 for 18 is harder than having to be flawless at something that'll only ever get you a 20-25% chance of moving? And all we're asking you to do is go 6 for 18 to get a 90% chance of getting the 80% of the people who don't think they have problems. So guys, use disclosure. I'm telling you, in a market like we're in today, it's the only thing that works. Sometimes you can get sloppy if the markets are a tailwind. They're helping you out. People are upset and worried because of what their account statements are doing. But when they're not upset or worried about their account statements because they're looking pretty good, and the people you want have money and don't have debt, and they're not spending it all to support their lifestyle, the only way you're going to get those people is to use disclosure. And we've got a way of making it tangible. We've got the software that creates the tangible report. We've got the morning stars that go in that report to make everything tangible. And we're turning the discussion from I have bad investments to my investments might be okay, but it's my guy who might be bad. I promise you, if you do this, and again, it's easier than any other thing that you might do, it's more unfamiliar. I'll grant you it's unfamiliar, and sometimes when we look at things that are unfamiliar that we haven't done in the past, they can appear hard, but this is a lot easier than any other way of doing it, and it's the only way that works when we're in markets like we have right now. All right, I know I'm at the top of the hour, so any questions, Missy?
You know, there's a question that just came in. What are the 3 to 4 key ones that disturb them the most out of the 21 total?
You know, I would say there are 6 or 7 that seem to resonate very powerfully with everybody. One is power of attorney. And power of attorney works because even if they don't have a power of attorney, I think my headphone's beeping, so I'll try and make this quick. That means I might be running out of power. Power of attorney, even if they don't have it, it's still very powerful. Medical power of attorney is very powerful. Titling is very powerful. Beneficiaries is very powerful. Fees are very powerful. Taxes are powerful, but taxes, it depends on if they give you a tax return. If you have it, it's very powerful. If you don't have it, you can't use it. The risk reward is very powerful. The diversification is very powerful. Investment weighting is very powerful. And we didn't talk about it today, but investment weighting is a big part of setting up an annuity sale at the next meeting. And sometime we'll talk about how do you sell annuities in an environment where the Dow is at 14,000 and cap rates are so low. I promise you, annuity sales, if you look at the last couple of years, are setting records. And it's probably because of the presentation, the type of presentation that we use to sell annuities when you get to that third meeting. And it's really a lot easier when you think about it if they've already decided to leave their current advisor. It's really hard to get somebody who hasn't decided to leave their current advisor to change their investments. It's a lot easier to get somebody who's decided to leave their advisor while they're leaving and they're making changes anyway to change their investments. But those are the most powerful ones. Again, everybody's in the office today except for Mike, and we expect him back tomorrow or the next day. So if you have questions, feel free to give us a call. We're here to answer all your questions and help you with any objections or anything that might be going well or not so well in a meeting. Please give us a call so we can help you and get it fixed and get those cases closed. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.